Welcome, Super Dungeon Explorers, to something a little different. Here I have the Super Dungeon Tactics video game for the PC that released just recently. I'll be showing you how to play, what to expect with the game itself, so it's sort of a bit of a tutorial and first impressions. Now I've already played the game for a little bit, so I'm going to load into my profile here. Now before we really begin, let me just begin by saying two things. One, because of the nature of video games, anything you see here could change. Controls could change, game modes could be added. It's the nature of video games. Things can get patched, and so you might see a different experience come a few weeks or months into the future. And second, this video game, while sharing the name sort of Super Dungeon Explorer, the tabletop game, is a completely different experience. So while you might be familiar with Super Dungeon Explorer, all of that information doesn't really translate back into this game. So currently right now, there's only a campaign mode, and the story is that you start off as two adventurers, and through the course of the game, you establish a guild and have more party members that you collect. So here I've got a little gaggle of teammates here. And here at the quest selection, we can do two different kinds of quests. Story mode quests, which will progress the natural story. Oh boy. And these bounties, which are like side stories that help you collect more loot. So I'm going to set this to this quest here. Now as you can see, as I'm picking these different quests, the party size changes, the difficulty changes, the story changes. So these are all things to keep in consideration when setting off for your party. And here you can set the difficulty. The difficulty is set per mission, so it really doesn't matter which you decide at any point. You can change. And there isn't any large consequence to losing your characters or losing a mission. You can simply restart or try again at a different difficulty. So here I've got my 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 heroes. And can just pick whoever I want to send on this mission. The mission size parameters are different. Let's see. I will send Indy. And the names that are on these characters, I gave them myself as I was playing the game. So you can have it be whatever you need it to be. Although, don't hit ready just yet. There's some things you want to do. Here is where this game really sets itself apart. So let me just show you by taking off all this character's equipment. On the top left here, you'll see what the character can equip. You have crystals, weapons, armor, and then everyone can equip trinkets of any kind. So these crystals here will give them abilities. And this character here, the ranger, has red-green crystal affinity. Depending on the color, it'll give you a different ability. So here, the green ability will always give me triple shot. But there are different sort of tiers of that will give me more stats. You can only pick one ability. And see, for these abilities that the character, or these colors that the character can't use, they don't get an ability, and they simply can't equip them. And as you equip different equipment here, you see in this bottom left corner you have this coin that has two sides. A skull and this explosion, which is a power sign. As you equip items, they will come with more signs and therefore increase and change your dice. So what was a D2 is now a D4 with the symbols that I've added. So this is just like for people who are really into the numbers, I guess you could say, and the probability. You can really customize your characters to make these unique dice depending on what you might need. And here I've made a sweet D10 with all these crazy abilities and such. Let's look at someone who can equip multiple. Red, yellow. I don't have any yellow. Blue, yellow. Yes. So here, the barbarian can use blue-yellow crystals. You can see here that the blue crystal will give her face punch, and the yellow crystal will give her enrage. So each character has two unique abilities, and here on the left, you'll see their character's health, armor, movement, and their different attacks. Now, every character always has access to their basic attack. However, the abilities that will come afterwards are only available if they are assigned that face on the die when it's rolled. And I'll get into that once we go into the actual gameplay. But, in short, the abilities of course are unique and usually helpful, and the skull is actually a debuff you can give yourself. So you might want to be careful. When creating your dice, you could make dice that are more detrimental to your own team, depending on how you build it. So here I've got all my heroes equipped. I'm just going to go over and get some items. These are just helpful things that you can use once per turn. Sure, why not? And then we'll set off on our quest. Alright, so at the very beginning of the game, you have your hero formation. You have this little bounding box where you can place your heroes. Simply click and drag wherever you want them to be placed. Like that. Yeah, that's good. Then you're ready to begin the first round. At the beginning of every round, you will roll all these dice based on the heroes that you've brought to the table and the console enemy opponent. And then you get to take any of these dice and take them to your characters. So the order in which you do this can be very important, because you don't want your opponent taking any dice that you prefer. At the very bottom here of the screen, you see the initiative order. So I have the first turn, and then I'll have 3 console squads activate against me, which means you'll also be taking a dice before I do. So I want to make sure to take this special one first, so that I can activate triple shot. And you see, console took 3 dice. Alright, so then I will take power and speed. So during your turn, you have your hero activation. You can pick any hero you want, but once you start the activation, you must complete their activation. Under your turn, you have 2 actions. A movement action, where you can click and drag your character to move them, or an attack action, where you hold space and you can select the attack. Your character will automatically try to attack after you move them, but if you want to attack first, simply hold space, select which attack you want to do. In this case, the ranger, since I gave her her triple shot, she has access to that. And if I don't want to do anything, I can simply end the turn. You also have the option to interact with certain objects on the game board if the quest requires it. Right now, you see here in the top right, the quest is to rid the cave of the warrens. Take out the spawner, which is right here in the middle. It's very important to keep in mind what the objective is, because you tend to want to just, defeat all the monsters, and that seems easy. But don't be deceived, it could bite you in the back. So as you're moving your character around, you see the yellow squares. That is their effective range. The barbarian here has a lance weapon, so it can attack anybody straight in those lines. Movement is determined orthogonally, up, down, left, right, and diagonals, and each count as 1 space. So that right there is 5 spaces. Ooh, just like that. So let's see, what do I want to do? You'll see that your opponent also has the same stats that you do: health, armor, and movement. Health is health. Once it goes down to 0, that character is killed. Armor acts as a second layer of health that gets deducted from first. So if I were to do 1 damage here to this Gouger, for example, it would first take 1 damage off of the armor, and then if I were to do additional damage, since the Gouger no longer has armor, it would go to their life. And then that is how I would defeat it. Some attacks can go through armor, and some attacks can attack multiple enemies at a time. Armor resets at the beginning of every round. So once your armor goes down to 0, if you can survive for the end of the round, your armor will go back up to its maximum at the start of the next round. Here in the bottom left you have the backpack. You can use this once per hero activation, so if you really need it, you can simply take it, drag it, and place it over the character which you need to use it on. Now this priest here, let's talk about the facings of the dice that we saw before. This priest here has a shield. It works similarly to armor, except it will reduce the damage of all incoming attacks that round by 1. So this priest here, if I were to try to attack it, let's say I do 1 damage, it would get deducted by 1 because of the shield and go to 0. And then if I were going with another character and try to attack for 1 damage, it would do the same each time I try to attack it. Now this power bonus increases the power amount of the active abilities by 1, including your basic attack. So my poids here, it shows the statistics same as it would for Super Dungeon Explorer, the range, the area of effect, and how much damage it does, but that would be increased by 1 because I gave her the power bonus facing die. Of course, the special ability allows you to have access to that special ability of that specific character. Movement bonus increases your movement range by 1 additional square. The skull, if you assign it to one of your characters, will debuff them, and each character will have a unique debuff. So you want to make sure that if you have to assign a skull to one of your characters, give it to someone who's not going to hurt the team the most. The other facings that you can have are red crosses, which will immediately heal your character for 1 or 2, depending on how many crosses are on that on that die facing. And then of course there is the blue power button, which will give that character access to their supportive abilities. Alright, so let's see here. Whoa man. So you have basic camera controls here. There are a lot of creeps. Holding right click allows you to spin the camera around. Holding middle mouse button allows you to pan it. Mouse wheel of course is to zoom. And these buttons can also be switched as you open up the game. So what do I want to do? There are a lot of creeps. If my objective here is to warn, there's just so many. Now range is super important in this game. Normally in Super Dungeon Explorer, you could attack within your range, but in this game, the range is defined. So here the ranger can only attack between 3 and 4 squares. Anything in between or anything outside of that does not count. Which means the enemy is also bound by those same limitations. But here I'm just going to move her. I have the option of canceling it or not. And if I'm super confident in where I want to go, I can simply double click and she pops where I need her to be. After you've confirmed your movement, she can no longer move anymore. Facing is not important, so whichever way she ends up facing by the end of her turn, it's fine. So here she has the range of her basic attack with the yellow squares, as I mentioned before. I don't want her to do her basic attack, so I need to make sure that I hold space, activate triple shot, and there we go. So here I'll simply select the gouger or the knifer, bam, 1 hit. And now we have aggro. As you kill enemies on the field or perform certain actions, you will gain aggro. And here's how the monsters work. The monsters will try to get within range of the person with the most aggro. If they cannot do that, they will try to get in range of anyone with the most aggro within their range. If they can't do that, they'll just try to get within range of anyone to attack. as they attack your character, they will reduce the aggro of that character by 1. That's kind of like a lot to process. But imagine this. I'm attacking this Gouger. Fantastic. Now it's the enemy's turn. She couldn't get within range of my ranger, so instead she attacked any other character. But see, this Gouger was able to get within range of the ranger, so she... I keep referring to them as she. So they tried to attack my ranger, and when they attacked her, the aggro went down by 1. So now, if, let's say for example, it was the console's turn again, and they had to decide who to attack, they would simply try to attack whoever is closest, because now the aggro of all the heroes is 0. Now it's important to keep in mind here these console squad activations. Similar to Super Dungeon Explorer arcade mode, you have these squads that are all headed up by a sort of bigger bad. And you have to find out who that is, and if you take them out, you will have all the minions that belong to that squad go towards this console pack activation. So just like in Super Dungeon Explorer, you can sort of deny your opponent of activations by killing off some of their bigger monsters. Or you can just simply try and take out the small fry and go on from there. Now what can I do? Once a monster is activated, or once a player is activated, they can no longer activate anymore for that remainder of the round. So I know that these Gougers and Knifers are no longer any threat to me, but I may still choose to defeat them. So I'm going to send Xeno over here, attack that range. She defeated 1, and now she has 1 aggro. So right there, that rally, this opponent here was able to activate these smaller guys outside of their regular turn order. So I know that this Gouger should probably be taken out as soon as possible. When determining range, allies don't block line of sight, but enemies and obstacles do. There is no friendly fire, so I can simply do AoEs without worrying about hurting my teammates. As you saw, at the end of each round, the spawner will get 1 darkness power, and they can use that. Well, actually, it's not always at the end of each round. As you can see, the warrants here on the skull gains 1 energy, and it can spend that energy to either spawn enemy mix or spawn elites. So then it's up to me to really determine where my priorities are. So I will take the triple shot so that they can't take it, and I will take the power so they can't take it. They took the shield. Alright, that's not great, but I will heal my character. So what can I do? So here is what's going to happen. Minnie's about to make herself a prime target, because I will attack, defeat 2 monsters, and gain a lot of aggro. And then I can choose to move. So I'm going to move far away. Then it's my second character here. The priest, of course, has shielded himself again, so I kinda don't want to deal with him. I'll deal with him later. So see, she had to get within range of the person with the most aggro. She could have attacked my barbarian, but the aggro wasn't high enough. And I will kind of try and get something going on here. The range is something I have to really keep in mind, and it's hard to get everything that I want. But those are the basics of the game. Something else that is important to this game is as you defeat these pack leaders, this is another bonus for killing them, they will drop loot, and depending on the difficulty of the mission that you selected, it'll be between 4 different qualities: common, uncommon, rare, and legendary. And it can be for any of the 4 slots of their equipment, their gear, or their gem, the weapon, the armor, and the trinket, and even consumables. So 5 actually item categories that they could go into. So just like in Super Dungeon Explorer, you are killing big bads, getting loot, finishing the mission, coming home, and divvying up the spoils. Depending on how you gear out your equipment, you have these unique and cool dice that determine your sort of play style, and whichever heroes you take onto the mission, it's fine if they die. You simply will lose access to that hero for the rest of the game, that specific mission, and their dice that they threw into the pool. But that's it for Super Dungeon Tactics. Again, this game might change over the course of time, depending on the patches. But right now, this game is actually really cool. At first, I thought it was a little too kiddish, but when you really crank up the difficulty, it makes you sit and think and really wonder about your equipment. Something I didn't mention was that at the beginning of every story mission and at the end of every story mission, there is a sort of visual novel style storyline that gets told to you. The characters talk to each other and they're all very, what's the word? Caricatures, The mage here is very fire happy, the ranger is, very calm and quiet, and the barbarian here just wants nothing but just fight. And so, all the characters interact with each other, and if that's your thing, that's your thing. If it's not, then you can simply skip it and just get to the gameplay. As you saw here, the bounties don't have a story. It's simply an opportunity for you to get more loot. And you can repeat this process as many times as you'd like, maybe trying to beat the time in which you could do it, or just get better loot. In the top left here, you have your help, which will give you a glossary for all the different abilities and icons that you may not know, tips, lore for all the different characters, etc. You also have the main menu. You can quit out. I don't want to. You can simply replay this entire counter if things aren't going to your way. You can just go back to the guild hall if you really want to. You can see your quest panel, which is just going to bring up and away this objectives, so you don't want to see it. But those are the basics. If the game changes dramatically over the next few months, I might do another video. If you guys want to see me play this game and root me on or hope that I lose or challenge me to do legendary difficulty every time, sure, I don't mind. This game is actually a lot cooler than I thought it would be. I actually got to try this out over PAX East 2016 back in April. Yeah, and I got to talk to the guys there about who were developing this game, and that's where I saw the 1v1 mode where one player was playing as the console and I played as the heroes, and so there's that dynamic. However, they've talked about this and their current plans are only to do local co-op. Online co-op is not a thing that they really have in the works going on right now, but who knows, if this game gets lots of support and if you guys are very vocal about what you guys want, they can of course add that in. They might add more heroes, they might add endless possibilities. That is the nature of video games, that they can get a lot more support than tabletop games. But that's all for now. Thanks for watching, and let's keep on rolling.